I just finished watching every single UFC 300 Media Day press conference, and there's actually quite a bit to unpack. While there was a lot of regular questions and being asked the same thing over and over again, like every single fighter, for example, was asked to break down the main event and the co-main event. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about the fighters, but we still did, for a lot of these fighters, really get to hear about how they're feeling, things like that. So the point of this video is to dive into the mindsets of these fighters. Is there anything to take away, especially when it comes to a betting perspective? Because things like this can matter. I would love to know what you guys think down below. I'm going to recap it for you. I'm going to say what I took away from this personally. And if you'd like to skip to any part of the video, timestamps will be there in the pinned comment description down below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. We're not diving through every single fighter because some of them didn't have a lot to say, but I want to start with Jim Miller. I always get a really good feeling when Jim Miller talks because Jim Miller, and he really just hammered it home at this press conference, is that he understands, and these are his words, he understands that he is not the person that he once was. He understands that he's not the fighter that he once was. He can't take the same amount of damage that he used to. He's not as fast. He's not as explosive as he used to be. And I think that is a really, really good mindset to have, because how many times do you see these guys that are so out of their primes, so old, shouldn't be in the UFC, they come in still believing they could be world champions? Chris Weidman, for example, he wasn't like that with his previous fight, but when he came off of that leg break, and we've seen it with so many other fighters, he still thinks that he can make a run. He's talking about fighting Israel Adesanya for a championship, right? There's so many people that are just being so unrealistic, and Jim Miller is not doing that at all. He keeps talking about retirement. He spoke about how he will retire when the time comes where he feels like he can't keep up in training camp. Right now, he still can. He's going to do the best that he can. He's training for his opponent. He's actively improving his skill set. He's focusing on his health. And again, he's understanding where he is in this point of his life, which I think is a fantastic mindset to have. So I was actually picking Jim Miller to win this fight, and I still am feeling really good about Jim Miller. Next up, guys, I want to talk about Jessica Andrade because she surprised me a little bit. She was very content. She was very happy and positive. She was talking about being able to fight until she's 40. And that's something that I want to get into because there is one big takeaway that I had from Jessica Andrade, because there was a little bit of ridiculousness with the female BMF belt. But other than that, she explained and put a lot of emphasis on this, actually, that she is taking full advantage of the UFC PI and doesn't understand why a lot of fighters aren't doing the same thing, because she can get on her health. She can get the stuff that she wants to eat. And most importantly, she talked about if anything on her body is hurting, she takes advantage of the physical therapy there. If her shoulder starts hurting for a second, she's gone. She's going to get it checked out. She's having somebody work on it. So she is using all of the health benefits possible from the UFC PI to ensure that she stays healthy, injury-free, and to use her words, she feels like she can fight until she's 40. That, in combination with her seeming to be so happy and content with this point, because I don't listen to Jessica Andrade talk, and it's aside from some of these press conferences, right? But I got a good feeling from her. I still don't think she's going to win the fight, but yeah, I actually have a good feeling taken away from Jessica Andrade. She seems ready. She seems happy. She seems ready to go. Next up, guys, I want to talk about Jalin Turner for a second. I don't have a ton to take away from Jalin Turner except one thing that he said in his interview. He was talking about preparing for an Auto Moicano, and he said, and I quote, he started training BJJ in gi again. Again. He started training in the gi for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu again. Does this mean that he hasn't been training Jiu-Jitsu? I hope this means that he just hasn't trained specifically in gis. Maybe he's been doing a lot of no-gi jiu-jitsu, but if he hasn't been training BJJ, that would explain a few of his performances. That's worrying for a guy like Jalin Turner, and I mean, if he's starting to train again, hopefully he had enough preparation for if he gets taken down in this fight. It's just a tad worrying for that one. Let's move on, though, to Holly Holm. Holly Holm is still comfortable at this point in her career. She's a little bit delusional in the fact that she can be a dominant champion, but at the end of the day, how much do you want to look into that? Because you have Raquel Pennington as a champion, and take a look at the rest of the contenders. There's not really anything to write home about, so wouldn't shock me if Holly Holm ended up being champion one day. But the one big takeaway from this is she brought in Chris Cyborg. I didn't know this. I don't know if this is common knowledge. I had no clue. Holly Holm said that she's very comfortable with a big, strong girl for the division, especially if you want to bring in someone like Cyborg. That's the girl you want to bring in for Kayla Harrison. I don't know who would be stronger. If I had to assume, it would be Kayla Harrison, especially because of the youth. I know Cyborg's definitely up there in age now, but still, at the end of the day, Holly Holm is very comfortable fighting somebody who is big and strong for the division, and I really, really like that, actually. I like that she brought in Cyborg. That's probably the best person that you could bring in preparation for Kayla Harrison, and Holly Holm is very comfortable. She still thinks she can be champion. She always kind of feels that way, but I would imagine that she feels ready for this fight and is ready to some extent. Just don't know if it's going to be enough. I also want to talk about Calvin Kattar for just a second, because there's one thing that he talked about that was worrying me just a little bit, and the fact that he is running a fight promotion. I don't know what that promotion is. I forget what the promotion is. I haven't heard about it myself, but it's a regional scene where fighters can, obviously, with the goal of getting into the UFC. You always have to worry when guys are getting into things like that outside of the UFC. Is it taking away from your training at all? Calvin Kattar's been talking about how he's ready, improving himself. Everything else that he said, he's been talking about he's ready, preparing for Aljamain Sterling, and getting ready for the fight. Everything that he said was on par with the things that you should say, but you gotta worry about that in the background if you're actually doing something as big as helping or taking the lead step in running a fight promotion. Worries me just a little bit, something to keep in mind. Now, Jiri Prochazka is the very interesting one, because Jiri opened up and said that he only had 1 week of full training for his last fight. I don't know how I feel about this, because when fighters usually make excuses like this, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. But Jiri does seem to be an honest dude, especially when his last fight, when most people get knocked down the way that he did it, and there was a little bit of a questionable stoppage. Most fighters would be like, I was totally there. I was about to take him down. Everything's good. I was about to win the fight. But Jiri was like, I did go out for a second. He was respectful in that manner, and that actually really made me take a look at his character a little bit differently. Not that I looked at it negatively. It's just seems like he has a track record of being a little bit honest. So that, along with how I've watched him fight against Alex Pereira, I still don't believe that that was Jiri at his best. I don't believe that. He was sluggish. He was slow. And I don't mean to take away from the performance of Alex Pereira. Jiri didn't look like his chaotic self. So I kind of feel like he might be telling the truth here. It's just something, again, to take into consideration, and perhaps Jiri Prochazka will look better than he did against Alex Pereira. Other than that, another thing that he said is, after his fight with Glover, and he said this, he is going to take, no matter what, any chance he sees to finish the fight, whether it's a takedown, whether it's a submission, whether it's a knockout, whether it is a risk to charge in. He is going to fight, and if he sees an opening to finish the fight, he is going to take that chance, no matter the risk. That's a little bit tough to do against a guy as technical as Alexander Rakic. I don't know how I feel about that. So, on one hand, I'm feeling like a better version of Jiri could come in here. And on the other hand, he could be a little bit more chaotic than we're used to seeing. But then again, he could thrive from that. So there's a huge mixed bag with Jiri Prochazka, just like every single time that we see him fight. The dude is just so chaotic. It's insane, but I love watching him. Now, guys, I want to talk about Bo Nickal. There's one big takeaway from Bo Nickal, because we all know Bo Nickal at this point. He is extremely, extremely confident. He's doing everything that he can prepare, according to Bo Nickal, of course. There's one thing that he said that made me go, come on, Bo Nickal. And I'm not like the rest of the MMA community. I'm a fan of Bo Nickal. I like him. I think he's a respectable guy. But I think he took it a little bit into a step too far this time around, because he sat down on the microphone and he said, betting on him is free money. You need to at least go into this, and I understand I'm just a guy behind the desk. I understand it's easy to say anything in a microphone, but you need to be going into these fights with the understanding that anything can happen, the understanding that there is potential for you to lose. If Bo Nickal's not fighting that way, and he's underestimating Cody Brundage in any sense, which he said that he's not, but if you're saying that you are free money to bet on, you gotta be underestimating your opponents. You have to. You have to. I don't understand how you could be thinking about him any other way. You could think you're better. You could be confident in your fights, but anything could happen. It's not free money betting on Bo Nickal. It's not. I just think he took it a two-step too far, and it makes me worry a little bit about his confidence level. Maybe it's turning into some sort of arrogance, but at the end of the day, I still do like Bo Nickal. Don't get the wrong idea here. People are really, really quick to hate on Bo Nickal. I like Bo Nickal. It's just perhaps he's getting a little bit too arrogant. You never know. You can find him with his hands down. You can find him leaving his neck out for a submission. We know Cody Brundage loves to jump those guillotines. Just something to think about. Just something to think about. Guys, speaking about fighters and diving into their mindsets, I want you to check out this video about Daniel Cormier. It's an old clip of him always being right about John Jones. Take care, everybody.